Mercedes Toto Wolff threatens Red Bull ahead of the French Grand Prix. So we're going to be going through that in today's video, but make sure you like this video and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want more Mercedes content like this. So Toto Wolff doubles down on the complaints rival teams are breaking FIA regulations. Toto Wolff has reasserted his belief that some teams are breaking the current FIA regulations regarding porpoising. The Mercedes Supremo believes that some teams are circumventing the rules by finding a way to make specific bits of the floor flex on their cars. Mercedes have been particularly badly affected by new technical regulations brought in for this season that has seen a return of ground effect. This has also coincided with some teams, particularly the Silver Arrows, struggling from porpoising, a phenomenon where the car suffers from high velocity bouncing at high speeds, which causes a lot of downforce and hence a loss of performance. Now, the FIA has been decided to implement more stringent checks to ensure teams are not trying to gain an unfair advantage. From the Belgian Grand Prix, the first race after Formula One's summer break, the FIA will insist on a strengthening underfloor plank skids and more intensive testing of how much wear is on the bottom of the car during races. This is in order to seek out teams that may have found a workaround to the regulations that allow their cars to run lower to the ground during the race. Wolff has been one of the most outspoken team bosses on the issue given Mercedes' struggles this year and has reaffirmed his belief that other teams are flouting the rules. Some teams have skids that actually disappear when the car hits the ground, the German told reporters after the Austrian Grand Prix. The reason for skids is that they are a limitation of how much wear of the board can have. If the skid can disappear miraculously into the floor, that is clearly against the regulations. Now, obviously they didn't do so well in the Austrian Grand Prix when it comes to what Mercedes standards are, but they still did really well getting third and fourth place, with Lewis Hamilton getting in third and George Russell getting in fourth. Now the second thing is there is a plank that can deflect or that basically also moves away from the tolerance should be. The tolerance is 1 millimeter, and if a plank moves away many more millimeters up into the car, obviously you gain some performance there too. So that is what Toto Wolff actually had to say. However, Red Bull chief Christian Horner has hit back against the claims of his fierce rival, believing he could be referring to their car. The drinks manufacturer has enjoyed a much more successful season than the Silver Arrows and have not suffered from porpoising. They currently sit at the top of the Constructors' Championship, over 100 points clear of Mercedes, while current world champion Max Verstappen leads the driver standings. That's total rubbish. Total rubbish, the 48-year-old told reporters. I think we're getting issues mixed up here. Maybe he's referring to, I don't know, cars that are around him at the moment. I have no idea, but I have absolutely no issues or concerns on our floor. The current debate over porpoising is likely to continue to be a contentious talking point when the Formula One circus rolls into the circuit Paul Ricard for the French Grand Prix next weekend. Now, Wolff thinks Mercedes could have kept up with Verstappen and half the gap, and there's some latest things that have been going on, especially with Mercedes' good performance in the Austrian Grand Prix. Like I said, it wasn't great compared to Mercedes standards, but to me as a Mercedes fan, I would say it was pretty well. So Toto Wolff reckons Mercedes have halved the gap to Red Bull Racing and Ferrari. In the Austrian Grand Prix, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell finished well clear of the leaders, but the Mercedes team boss believes that the team could have matched Verstappen's race if the drivers had a better starting position. Hamilton got a podium out of it. Without the crashes of Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz, it most likely would have not been there. According to Wolff, the Mercedes drivers' double crash in qualifying was the reason Russell and Hamilton could not fight for better positions. Wolff thinks Mercedes could have kept up with Verstappen. Indeed, without the crashes in qualifying, the Mercedes team boss thinks his drivers could have kept up with Verstappen's pace. I think we've halved the gap over the last few months. We understand better, but we're still third, fourth, we're some right there in the middle of nowhere, Wolff said. Nevertheless, the Austrian says he is trying to take the positives out of the race. If we would have, which we didn't, started right in the top 6, probably we could have held on to Max and not been so far away. Now, I do have to admit that Verstappen is really on another level in this season. However, I do kind of believe that Mercedes can keep up with Verstappen and the other Red Bull and Ferrari racers like Sainz, Perez, and Leclerc. But on top of all this, I do think the racers, it really does come down to them and what they are able to do. So Lewis Hamilton and George Russell finished third and fourth, like we talked about in the Austrian Grand Prix, and with the 7-time former world champion crossing the line 41 seconds behind winner Charles Leclerc. For Hamilton in particular, that presented a fine result considering he had crashed in the last part of qualifying and started the Grand Prix 8th on the grid, having improved only one position during the previous day's sprint. Wolff, the Mercedes team principal, said the W13, which has been struggling compared to Red Bull and Ferrari all season, was not quick enough to really challenge for the front just as of yet. Although Hamilton and Russell have stepped onto the podium 7 times between them this term, every time it has been a result of having finished third. Elliott, in Mercedes post-race debrief, believes the team are making progress with various updates they are adding to the W13, but still have a little way to go before properly getting themselves back in the hunt for wins. In the race on Sunday, Lewis was able to get through a slower cars that were in front of him, getting himself up into a position where he only had the Red Bulls and Ferraris ahead, explained Elliott. While we finished the race quite a chunk of it, some of that was because of the Ferraris and the Red Bull were able to stop under the virtual car safety at the end and stop onto the podium tires and effectively get a cheap stop. So obviously when it comes to sports, that's basically how it always is. There can be a little bit of luck involved, and obviously some teams can take advantage of that. So there were a lot of things that did happen in the Austrian Grand Prix, but with the French Grand Prix coming up, I do think it is going to be interesting because slowly and surely Mercedes are starting to find their way. They're starting to know when it comes to the W13, the modifications or upgrades they need to make for each Grand Prix. The drivers themselves, George Russell, Lewis Hamilton, starting to get a feel of their actual car and also how to really push it to the limit and keep that really good pace to keep up with such great racers, such as Verstappen, Leclerc, all these people. 7-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton has revealed his pleasure in working with new teammate George Russell this season and his belief that the 24-year-old young driver can lead the Mercedes team to further glory in the future. Former Mercedes Jr. and Williams driver Russell, who has called up to the Works team in replacement of Valtteri Bottas for the 2022 season. He has finished in the top 5 in 10 of the opening 11 races, which was honestly great to see, and Hamilton has praised the positive impact that Russell has had on their team, believing that Mercedes made the right choice with their driver lineup. I won't say it's been tough being Russell's teammate, it's been pleasant. We've worked together incredibly well, Hamilton said. George has been super positive. He had a great positive impact on the work environment. It's generally been a real pleasure to work with him, and it's been great to see his success. He's done such a great job, got great points for the team, and he's going to continue to improve. He's going to continue to improve for a long time. I definitely see that he's got so much potential in him, and he's in the right place for it as well. I really think that whether or not I'm here, he has all the qualities to help make sure this team forward in the future can lead them to success. So I think it's been the right choice for the team. I hope I can be a little bit part of helping him in that progress. And I honestly think this is kind of sad in a way. Lewis Hamilton is getting older by the day, and he does know what is about to come. And I do think that George Russell can really fill the shoes of Lewis Hamilton. Now, don't get me wrong, Lewis Hamilton will go down as one of the greatest drivers alive, but I think I got complete confidence that Russell is going to be able to win some championships in the future. And I think it's great to see someone of Lewis Hamilton's caliber to actually be commenting like this. So he actually continued and said, "I like to look at things a bit more objectively," said Russell. "Things can change very quickly in Formula One, and signing a piece of paper to join the greatest team of this era, without a doubt, is obviously a huge moment. But if I don't perform, if I go and I get my ass kicked by the greatest driver of all time, what does it mean? Because in a year's time, I'll probably be out the door." And I think this is really important. A lot of other drivers, when it comes to, play or being for someone like Mercedes and being an actual driver, they think that's the top. However, when it comes to it, and like we've seen with Lewis Hamilton, getting to that position of being in, the silver arrows is just one step of the whole process. You got to win, and you got to want to win badly. And I think that's very important, especially for a team like Mercedes that is coming back or trying to come back from losing last year. Obviously, there was a lot to it. Mercedes were definitely still in the running. Lewis Hamilton was definitely going to do a really good job. However, things happen, and Mercedes weren't able to take the constructors. So there was a lot to it in that retrospect. So after all this, there actually have been new rules the FIA will introduce to the F1 2023 to stop porpoising. So, this will be interesting to see how this plays out. But there will be several changes to the technical regulations to help eradicate porpoising for the 2023 F1 season amid growing safety concerns. Since the start of F1's new era, the bouncing phenomenon has been a problem that the majority of teams have faced and down the grid. Due to the new ground effect cars and teams trying to run their cars as close onto the track surface as possible, The porpoising effect has dominated paddock chat. Reigning world champions Mercedes have been most affected in 2022, which is why we really haven't seen them being performing at the level that people really do expect from Mercedes, and with porpoising the main reason for their relative struggle compared to Ferrari and Red Bull. In a bid ensuring porpoising isn't an issue and the safety of drivers is not at risk, the FIA will make changes to the aero rules for next season. The FIA outlined, in the spirit of consultation, the FIA discussed a range of aerodynamic measures with the teams and taking into account the views of the teams. The FIA has decided to narrow down the actions to intend to take for 2023 to these steps: a 25mm raising the floor edges, a raising of the underfloor diffuser throat, the introduction of more stringent lateral floor deflection tests, the introduction of more accurate sensor to help quantify the aerodynamic oscillation. The FIA intends to still introduce several short-term measures at the Belgian Grand Prix, despite porpoising being less of an issue in recent rounds. So I think this will be really important to see for next season. Now, when it comes to the French Grand Prix, it is coming up very, very soon. I'm really excited to see what is about to happen. And it will be interesting to see how it all plays out. So only a couple of days left before the French Grand Prix. Mercedes, hopefully we get back to that top and try to get pole position for this race. So it will be, a very, very hard race for Mercedes due to all the issues that they are running into. And Toto Wolff saying what he had to say about Red Bull and Ferrari. Let's see if that goes the way it goes. So thank you so much for watching today's video, guys. Hope you did enjoy. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace.